The preacher's voice echoed down the empty aisle like it was mocking me. I stood there at the front of the church, hands clenched at my sides, sweat crawling down my back despite the late spring chill. Half the pews were filled with folks I'd known since I was a boy, neighbors, ranch hands, even my old school teacher, but they weren't here to celebrate. They were here to witness the humiliation of Boon Carter. I wasn't marrying for love. I was marrying because I had no damn choice. Sterling Rhodes sat in the front row like a proud king, head resting on his knee, a smug little smile playing on his lips. He owned half the county, and every soul in it, including, now, me. He'd bought up my father's debts like they were poker chips, waited until P.A. passed, and then come to me with one hell of a proposition. Marry Cora Maddox, he said, or I take your land, your cattle, and the Carter name goes up in smoke. Cora Maddox, widow of Thomas Maddox, a man older than dirt and twice as bitter. She was at least 15 years older than me. I'd seen her once or twice in town, always dressed in black, veil pulled low, lips red as blood. People said she didn't speak to anyone since her husband died, and when she did, it was just to issue instructions or insults. And now she was to be my wife. I should have walked away. I should have let the ranch go, but I couldn't. That land wasn't just dirt and fences. It was my mother's laughter echoing through the kitchen, my father's boots on the porch after a long day, the smell of juniper after rain. It was everything I had left of them, and I wasn't about to watch it get carved up by Rhodes and sold off piece by piece. The doors creaked open behind me. I didn't turn around right away. I braced myself for the sound of ridicule, maybe. I snicker from the back, maybe a whispered, "Poor boy's selling his soul." But the church fell into silence, so complete it made my ears ring. Then I heard her footsteps, sharp, unhurried. I turned. Cora Maddox was not what I expected. She moved like a queen, back straight, head high. Her dress was simple but elegant. Her dark hair swept up in a way that exposed the length of her neck. There was no smile on her face, but there was something worse, calm, as if this wedding was nothing more than a business transaction. And I guess for her it was. We didn't touch hands, didn't exchange smiles, just stared straight ahead. As the preacher read his lines, fumbling over words like even he couldn't believe what he was saying. "Do you, Boon Carter, take this woman?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My throat tightened. I could feel every eye on me, Sterling's smirk, my mother's old friend, Margaret, trying not to cry, the ranch foreman, Jake, shaking his head like I'd just thrown away my manhood. I wanted to run, but I didn't. "I do," I said, and the words felt like they were choking me. Cora's "I do" came crisp, clean, like snapping a branch in winter. A few awkward claps followed. The preacher gave a nod. No kiss, no bouquet. Just silence and the heavy thud of my heart. Outside, the sky was gray and low, promising rain. As we stepped out of the church, Cora turned to me for the first time and said, "We'll take my carriage." I said nothing, because I couldn't feel my legs. I'd just married a woman I didn't know, to save a place that didn't love me, and all I could think was, I'm not a man. I'm just the last desperate boy in a dying family line. I looked back once. No one waved. No one smiled. Not even God, it seemed, had bothered to show up. Asterisk, the ride to her home was silent, but not peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that wrapped around your neck like a noose. I sat stiff beside her in the black carriage, unsure where to put my hands, my eyes, or my damn pride. Cora didn't fidget or glance my way. She looked out the window like she was already 1,000 miles from me. Her estate sat on the far end of the valley, not technically part of the Carter land, but close enough to cast a long shadow. I'd seen it from the ridge before, but never up close. The place looked more like a house from the east than anything built out here. Tall windows, intricate trim, ivy crawling up the stone like fingers. A proper widow's castle. The driver stopped. Cora stepped out without waiting. I followed, boots, crunching on the gravel path, hat in hand, like I was meeting a schoolmarm. She opened the front door herself. No servants, no greetings. Inside, the house smelled like lavender and dust. Everything was neat, too neat. No sign of life, no warmth, no mess. Just polished wood floors, tall mirrors, and a silence that felt practiced. She turned to me in the entryway, her veil removed now, revealing eyes that were startlingly green. Not soft, not cruel, just watchful, like she was always thinking 3 moves ahead. "We will be civil," she said, voice steady. "We will not pretend. I will not cook for you. I will not warm your bed. I expect you to stay out of my private rooms, and I will stay out of yours." I blinked. Right. I have no interest in becoming Mrs. Carter, nor should you expect me to become some version of Mrs. Maddox. This arrangement is legal. Nothing more. I nodded slowly, unsure what else to do. She started up the stairs, then paused halfway. "And we don't speak of Thomas. Not ever." It was then I realized. I just entered not a marriage, but a contract. A cold, strategic alliance between 2 people who had both been cornered by life. But something in me stirred. Not resentment. Not quite. Curiosity. I'd expected a meek woman hiding behind her husband's ghost. But Cora Maddox was something else entirely. She wasn't hiding. She was commanding. Even with nothing but words and posture, she made me feel like the guest in her world. "Understood," I said, but she was already out of sight. I was shown to a room in the west wing. Not the master, not the servant quarters. Clean, sparse. A bed, a dresser, a window facing the hills. I stood there a while, just breathing, trying to piece together who the hell I had married. I could still feel the weight of her voice, the precision in it. She wasn't cold. No, that would have been easy. Cora was something else. She was contained. That night we didn't dine together. I ate a cold meal left out in the kitchen. She stayed behind closed doors, no sounds, no footsteps. Just a flicker of light beneath her door until midnight, then darkness. I should have felt free, in a way. She'd set clear rules. I wouldn't have to fake affection, wouldn't have to pretend to be a husband to someone who didn't want me. But instead, I felt caged. More alone than I'd been when my father died. Because this loneliness wasn't quiet, it was humming with unanswered questions. Who was she, really? What kind of woman insists on marrying a stranger, then lays down rules like a general? What happened to Thomas Maddox? And why did Sterling Rhodes care so much about this marriage? That last question bothered me more than anything. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind whisper against the window. Every time I blinked, I saw her eyes. This was supposed to be a transaction. So why did it already feel like a mystery I couldn't stop myself from unraveling? By the 3rd morning, I realized Cora Maddox wasn't just a mystery. She was a contradiction in every breath. Her house was full of things that didn't belong on the frontier. French novels, a working gramophone, sheet music I couldn't even read, let alone play. The parlor had a grand piano that gleamed like it had never seen dust. Everything about the place felt curated, not just lived in, like she was holding on to a life that didn't match the dry, hard land outside. And every time I passed her in the hallway, I saw the same strange calm in her, like she was balancing something heavy just out of view, and if she moved too fast, it might crash. We didn't speak much, just polite nods and brief instructions. But it was more than the silence that unnerved me. It was the precision, the way she brewed her tea at exactly 7, the way she kept every room in perfect order. There were no family photos, no sentimental clutter, just her, and that damn journal she kept writing in at night. By the 5th day, my curiosity got the better of me. We were in the library, her reading some thick volume I didn't recognize, me pretending to browse titles I'd never open. When I finally asked, "You always live like this?" I said, trying to keep it light. "Everything so clean you can hear the dust scared to settle?" She glanced up, closed her book, and set it down gently. "Yes. No one visits. No one is invited." "You weren't always out here, though," I pressed. "This place doesn't look like someone born and raised on the plains." Her expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker behind it. Not fear, something colder. Containment. "I wasn't," she said simply. "Back east?" I asked. "Farther." I waited for more, but she went right back to her book, like a door closing. Later that evening, I passed a room I hadn't seen open before, a study of some kind, lit by a single oil lamp. I didn't mean to snoop. I swear I didn't, but the door was ajar, and I heard something that stopped me, her humming. Soft, Fragile. Beautiful. I peeked through. She stood barefoot, hair undone, staring at a faded photograph in her hand. The look on her face wasn't grief. It was deeper than that. A kind of ache. Like she missed not just a person, but the version of herself she used to be with them. Asterisk then she noticed me. She turned so fast. I nearly tripped over myself backing away. Sorry, didn't mean to. You were never invited into this room, she said. Her voice was low, calm, but sharp enough to draw blood. I raised my hands. I know, I'm sorry, I just heard something. She stared at me for a long beat. Then, to my surprise, she softened. Thomas used to play that piano, she said quietly. Before the silence set in. I didn't know what to say. This was the first time she'd mentioned her husband, and it came out like she hadn't meant to. You miss him, I said. A statement, not a question. Her eyes snapped to mine. Double quotes, no, I miss who I was before him. She walked past me, leaving. The door wide open now, and I stood there, spine stiff, gut tight, realizing just how deep the well went with this woman. It wasn't about Thomas Maddox. It wasn't about some arranged marriage or Sterling Road's twisted little bargains. There was something buried here, in these walls, in her eyes, in that journal she guarded like a life raft, and I, Boon Carter, broke, bitter, and bound to her by paper and pride, was suddenly desperate to know what the hell it was. Because somehow, in this silent war we were waging under one roof, I'd started to care, and that scared me more than anything. It happened on a Tuesday night, the kind of night where everything feels too quiet, like the house itself is holding its breath. I was in the dining room finishing off a cold roast, when I heard the knock. No, not a knock, a pounding. Hard, urgent, like fists trying to break the door in. I stood so fast I nearly knocked the chair over. In the hallway I could already hear Cora's steps above me, fast, deliberate. She didn't call out, didn't ask who it was. She moved like she already knew. The door shook again. Cora appeared at the top of the stairs. No shoes, her hair loose around her shoulders. In her hand she held a pistol, not some dainty lady's derringer either, but a Colt Army revolver. That looked worn from use. "Stay here," she ordered, voice flat. I ignored her. I followed as she moved down the stairs and cracked the door, just enough to see who was on the other side. I caught a glimpse of 3 men, dusty hats, greasy coats, the kind of men who didn't knock unless they were owed something, or worse, promised it. "We ain't here for games," one of them barked. "Catherine Walsh, we know you're in there." I froze. Cora didn't. She stepped out onto the porch, gun at her side, eyes locked on the man in front. "My name is Cora Maddox." "You've got the wrong house." "You're full of it, lady," another snapped. "We seen the photo. You're Catherine, all right. And Brennan wants you back." Brennan. The name hit like a hammer to the chest. I didn't know the man, but I knew the type. The kind of man who sent wolves to knock for him while he stayed clean in the city. I stepped forward. Cora didn't look back at me, but she didn't stop me either. "She's not going anywhere," I said. "You got a problem, take it up with the law." The first man smiled, the slow, lazy smile of someone who thinks they've already won. "You think the law cares about her? She's wanted, stole $50,000 and vanished. Brennan's just collecting what's his." Cora didn't flinch. "I didn't steal a damn thing," she said, "and I'm not hiding. I've just had enough of being hunted." That's when I noticed her hands shaking just slightly. Not fear, adrenaline, readiness. "Back off my porch," she warned. "We ain't here to talk," the man said, stepping forward. The sound of her cocking the hammer echoed like thunder in the still night. The man froze. Behind us, I saw the stable. Lantern sway in the wind. Then, something shifted. The third man, quiet until now, narrowed his eyes at me. "You the husband?" he asked. I nodded. He gave a slow grin. "Then you best get ready to bury her." My blood went cold. Cora raised the pistol higher. I don't miss. But before it could turn into a gunfight, I grabbed her arm and pulled her back inside. Slammed the door. Bolted it. Her face was pale, jaw tight. "They're not going away," I said. "No," she agreed. "They won't. Not until they find what they think I took." "You gonna tell me what this is about?" I asked, voice low. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and something inside her cracked. My name was Catherine Walsh, she said, words like stones. I was married once before Thomas to a man named Brennan. I stared at her, thunderstruck. That Brennan? She nodded. He killed my husband, not Thomas. The one before. When I tried to expose him, he called me a thief. Sent men to erase me. I sank into the nearest chair, trying to process it. The woman I married was a fugitive, but not for money. For truth, and still, she'd stood in front of them, armed. A lone dot, she was right. They wouldn't stop. But neither would I. You're not alone, I said. Not anymore. She looked like she wanted to argue, to push me away, but something in her eyes softened. I don't know if you're brave, she said, or just young and stupid. Little of both, I muttered. Dot outside, the wind howled across the porch. Dot inside. I took her hand, and she didn't pull away. Asterisk, the next morning I rode into town, not to run, but to listen. I needed to know what Brennan's men were saying, how much noise they were making, and what I heard chilled me to the bone. 3 men, all strangers, holed up in the saloon like they owned it. One with a broken nose, probably from a past disagreement with Cora. They weren't hiding, and they weren't planning to leave. I overheard one mention the word journal. Sighed. Brennan was sure she still had it, that she'd made copies. That? She was playing a long game. I didn't stay long. When I returned, Cora was waiting on the porch, pistol holstered at her hip like it belonged there. Her face was unreadable, but I could see it in her eyes. She was tired of running. Tired of secrets. We didn't speak right away. We sat. Let the wind speak for us, Dot. Then she said, you should know the rest. And she told me, Dot, not in bits, not in riddles. All of it. Her name had been Catherine Walsh when she lived in Philadelphia. She married young to Marcus Brennan, son of a banker, who turned his father's modest estate into a criminal empire dressed in tailored suits and charity auctions. Brennan wasn't just cruel, he was careful, clean, always 2 layers removed from the filth he dealt in. Catherine had thought she could change him, but when she found the ledger hidden beneath floorboards in his office, she realized he wasn't just greedy. He was laundering government funds through front companies, buying officials, covering up murders. And when she confronted him, he laughed, told her no one would believe a woman, that she should smile, play wife, and forget what she saw. She didn't. She took the ledger. She ran. He followed. Somewhere between the escape and the hiding, she met Thomas Maddox, a man who offered her shelter, safety. Not love, maybe, but something close. He knew who she was, knew what she carried. And one night, after a strange letter arrived, Thomas was found face down in the creek. Cora never said it out loud, but I saw it in her silence. She believed Brennan. Had him killed. I became someone else, she whispered. Buried Catherine. Married Thomas in name only. Hid the copies. Waited. For what? I asked. For someone like you, she said, eyes burning. Someone stupid enough to stay. I half laughed. So I'm your mule and your shield. No, she said. You're the first man I didn't have to lie to. We went inside. She pulled up a floorboard beneath the study rug and handed me a small oilskin-wrapped book, the original ledger. The one Brennan still thought he could destroy. You said you made copies, I said. I did. 4. 1 in the piano. 1 in the base of a lamp. 1 sewn into the lining of a winter coat. 1 I mailed to a friend back east the week after Thomas died. And the feds? They never listened. Back then, a woman's word against a banker's meant nothing. But if I can get this into the right hands now... She let the sentence hang. Suddenly, everything about her made sense. The calm, the boundaries, the way she watched doors and windows like a soldier. Cora hadn't been surviving. She'd been preparing. I stood, unsure whether I felt furious or honored. You should have told me, I said. I didn't think you'd stay. I married you, didn't I? She looked at me, softer now. You married a stranger. You're still deciding whether to stay with the truth. She wasn't wrong, but I wasn't going anywhere. The next day, we sent a writer with a journal copy to a federal contact Cora had kept hidden for years. She said his name was Wallace, that he owed her a favor big enough to risk crossing Brennan. I nailed the windows shut that night. moved my bed to the hall outside her door, and waited for the devil to come, because now he had a name, and I was finally ready to fight back. Asterisk, he came without warning. 3 days after we sent the copy to Cora's contact, I woke to the sound of hooves in the yard. Not galloping, calm, deliberate steps. Men who didn't need to rush because they already believed they owned everything inside. I grabbed my rifle and met Cora at the top of the stairs. She was already dressed, her revolver in hand, calm as if she'd been expecting him all her life. When I stepped onto the porch, he was already there. Marcus Brennan. He looked nothing like the devil I'd pictured. No red eyes, no snarling mouth. Just a man dressed too fine for this dusty valley. Gray suit, gold cufflinks, gloves stitched so tight you'd think he was worried about dirt touching him. Behind him stood 2 of the men from earlier, plus a new one with a scar across his lip, all armed, all watching. Boon Carter, Brennan said, like we were old friends. You're the husband, then? Asterisk, I am, I replied. And you're trespassing. He smiled. You've got grit. I admire that. Shame you've hitched yourself to a fraud. She's no fraud, I said. She's a liar, a thief, a murderer. She's your ex-wife. Asterisk that cracked the smile. He stepped forward, slow, like a man who's used to getting what he wants by asking nicely right before he takes it by force. Asterisk. I know she gave you something, he said. A ledger. Perhaps a letter. Maybe even some story to go along with it. She gave me the truth. That's a dangerous thing to believe in out here. I glanced at Cora. She stepped forward. Chin high, gun low. You always send men to do your killing? She said. Or did my letter force you to show up yourself? Brennan's jaw tensed. You mailed a copy, he said. To Wallace, I assume. She didn't answer, which told him everything. He laughed once, humorless. You really think Wallace is still on your side? He's been on my payroll for a year. I saw Cora flinch, the tiniest break in her armor. Brennan saw it too. I've no leverage, Catherine. No allies. You're not even legally my wife anymore. And this boy? He gestured to me like I was an inconvenience. He'll be dead before the marshals ride halfway down from Denver. You're wrong, I said, stepping forward. About what? About her being alone. That's when Cora raised the journal. Pages open, the flame of an oil lamp dancing. In her other hand, you want this? She said. Come and take it. But know this, there are 3 more copies hidden. And if I'm dead, they're set to go public. Brennan's mask slipped. Just a flicker. He wasn't scared of guns. He was scared of being seen. He stepped forward, fast now. But Cora didn't back down. I warned you in Philadelphia, she said. I'd burn the truth into the world if you ever came near me again. Then, from behind the barn, a shout. Federal marshals. Drop your weapons. Brennan froze. I hadn't even heard them ride up. Turns out Wallace hadn't betrayed her. He'd just taken his sweet time. A dozen marshals appeared like ghosts out of the morning mist. Rifles aimed. The hired guns dropped theirs quick. Brennan stood still, his jaw tight, eyes locked on Cora. You think this is over? He hissed. No, she said. But now it's public. The marshals surrounded him. One read him his rights. Another took the journal from Cora's hands, gently, like it was the most powerful weapon in the world. Brennan didn't scream, didn't beg. He just stared at her, silent, as the cuffs clicked shut. It wasn't over, but it was the beginning of the end. And for the first time I saw Cora's shoulders drop. Not in fear, in relief. She'd been holding that weight for years. Now she was finally letting it go. Asterisk, I should have known it wouldn't end clean. Brennan's hands were cuffed. His. Men disarmed. The marshals were escorting him down the path, like the devil himself had been tamed. But men like Brennan don't walk away without trying to take something with them. It happened fast. Too fast. One of his men, the one with the scar, had a hidden pistol strapped to his ankle. As the marshals were leading them toward the horses, he dropped, rolled, and drew. The shot cracked like lightning through the air, but it wasn't aimed at the marshals. It was aimed at her. I didn't think. I just moved. One moment I was standing on the porch, eyes on Brennan. The next I was diving in front of her, arms wide, body turning on instinct. The bullet caught me square in the side. just beneath the ribs. I remember the heat, the sound, her scream, then the world spun sideways. I hit the dirt hard. My ears rang like church bells. I couldn't breathe, but I saw her, Cora, dropping to her knees beside me, hands on my face, voice cracking as she shouted my name over and over again. Her face wasn't calm anymore. It was twisted in something raw, something I hadn't seen before. Fear. "Boon, look at me," she whispered, pressing her hands to my side. "Stay awake, you hear me?" The marshals tackled the shooter before he could fire again. Brennan, to his credit, or damnation, just watched, unmoved, as blood soaked into the dirt. Cora leaned down until her forehead touched mine. "You don't get to leave me," she said, voice trembling. "Not after all this, not now." I tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. "You cried," I rasped. She let out a wet laugh. "You're damn right I cried. Idiot." They rushed me inside. A marshal had some experience with wounds, packed it with cloth, poured whiskey into it. I bit down on a leather strap and screamed like a dying mule. Cora never left my side. For hours I drifted in and out. Each time I woke, her hand was in mine. Sometimes she prayed. Sometimes she just stared. Once I caught her brushing her fingers across my forehead like she thought I was already gone. But I WASN single quotes T. By morning, the fever hadn't set in. The bleeding had slowed. The marshal said if I made it through the next 2 days, I'd live. "Stubborn as hell," he muttered. "Must be love." Cora didn't respond, but that night, as we sat alone, she laid her head on my shoulder, gentle, careful not to jostle the bandages, and whispered, "I should have told you sooner. I didn't want to need you." "You didn't," I murmured. "You chose me. That's what matters." We sat in silence. Outside, the valley was quiet. The ranch still. Brennan was on his way to Denver in shackles, facing charges that would follow him for the rest of his life. The ledger was in federal hands. The truth finally had a voice. And Cora, once Catherine Walsh, then the widow Maddox, was no longer a ghost in her own home. Neither was I. I wasn't just the man who married her out of desperation. I was the man who stayed. 3 months later, I was mending a fence post when I heard it. Music. Real music. Drifting across the hills like something out of a memory. The piano. I dropped the hammer and followed the sound back to the house. Sunlight poured through the parlor windows. And there she was. Cora. Not in black. She wore a pale green dress I'd never seen before. Sleeves rolled, hair down. She sat at the grand piano with her back to me, hands dancing across the keys like she wasn't just playing, she was remembering. I stood in the doorway, not wanting to break it. She glanced over her shoulder and smiled. An honest, easy smile, the kind I wasn't sure she'd ever had before. "You're supposed to be resting," she said. "I was," I said. "Then I heard proof you weren't secretly a ghost." She rolled her eyes but laughed. "Ghosts don't play choppin'." "I don't know what that is." "Exactly." We'd settled into something strange and new in the months since Brennan's arrest. Not lovers right away, not even fully comfortable. But there was a softness between us now. Shared glances over breakfast. Quiet walks at dusk. I'd catch her reading on the porch swing, eyes closing with the breeze, and think, this is ours now. All of it. The ranch was recovering, too. Sterling Rhodes had kept his distance. Whether from shame or fear, I didn't know, and I didn't care. The land was ours, legally, fully. The title came in the mail a week after Brennan's trial started. Cora opened a letter that day and didn't say a word, just handed it to me and watched me read. Inside was a note from Wallace. He pled guilty to everything, said the devil had bested him. I assumed that was you. She didn't cry, didn't celebrate. Just sat beside me on the porch and leaned her head against my shoulder for the first time. Today, in the piano room, I finally asked her what I'd been carrying for weeks. "Do you regret it?" I said. She stopped playing. "What, marrying me?" She turned slowly, hands resting in her lap. "No, but you never got to choose. Not really. I chose to survive," she said. "I chose to fight. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I found someone who saw me, not just the story they whispered about me." She stood, walked over, and placed her hand over the scar on my side. You took a bullet for me, Boone. You could have run. You could have burned that journal and walked away. We stood there, close. No tension, no performance. Just two. People who'd survived something cruel and come out the other side still whole. Almost. I wish I'd known you sooner, I said quietly. Cora's eyes shimmered. I wouldn't have let you in, she admitted. Back then I was still trying to disappear. You're not invisible anymore. No, she said. Not with you. We stayed like that a while, the piano behind us, the scent of rain on the horizon, a hawk circling above the ridge. Later, that evening, we sat on the porch and watched the sun dip behind the hills. She reached for my hand, laced her fingers through mine. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. I'd married her. To save a ranch, she'd married me to disappear. Yet somehow, through pain and fire and blood, we'd found the one thing neither of us expected. A home, together.